Hello, romance readers. Welcome to Illicit Liaisons with Tender and Tempting Tales, where each week we discuss the good, the bad, and the naughty of romance fiction. I'm Tara Liederman, social media manager here at Tender and Tempting Tales, as well as a science fiction romance author. And the reason you're hearing me do the opening today is because a highlight of this week's podcast is Jenna Harte herself. Jenna is the founder and managing editor here at our little press, helping us usher steamy anthologies and spicy zines to all of you. She's also, of course, a romance author, having written the Southern Heat contemporary romance series and the Sexy Valentine mysteries, which features a married, sleuthing, and murder-solving couple called Tess and Jack, and which I've been enjoying immensely. Jenna has a brand new Valentine mystery re-releasing this month, Dead But Not Forgotten. We'll have Jenna's website where you can find all of her Valentine and Southern Heat mysteries, as well as where you can get a free story from Jenna in today's show notes. Welcome to the pod, Jenna.
Yay! Thank you for having me on my
On your
on
own
half of
podcast.
my own show.
Well, I really wanted to talk about your book, and I feel bad crowding in on another guest, so you get to be the feature today.
I'm all for it.
You feeling good?
Yeah,
All
let's
right.
go.
All right, so we love to talk about trends in romance. Normally, we like to talk about bookish news, interesting hot takes, or trends we come across in the bookish world. This week, we thought we'd talk about pet peeves. Jenna has quite a lot of them. Uh, she has an established romantic couple in the Valentine mystery, and you never run out of ways to explore romance and drama between the two of them. But I think we both feel like we don't see enough of that, especially when there's romance in television shows. Why do you think that is?
Oh, because the writers don't know what to do. I think in soap operas, right, you have to sort of mess them up. You
Hmm.
finally get the couple together, but they can only be happy for about a day and a half before an ex comes in or whatever it is,
Hmm.
right? But there's a lot of television shows with the will they or won't they, or, you're shipping them and they draw it out forever. They're about to get together and then something messes them up. Like Bones, for example, took
Hmm.
them what, 7 or 8 seasons. I love the Murdoch mysteries. It took them 7 or 8 seasons. And then sometimes they come together and it doesn't work. I think Moonlighting was,
Hmm.
wouldn't that come out in the 80s?
Hmm.
And they had a lot of chemistry, will they or won't they? And then when they finally get them together, they sort of jump the shark. And there's this idea like once they're together, all the zing and chemistry is gone. And I think it's just a function of writers not being able to figure out how to work that. And of course, my example of it working would be the show Heart to Heart, which
Hmm.
was canceled for Moonlighting, much to many of the fans'
That's not cool.
chagrin. So here we had a couple that had a lot of zing and snap, crackle, pop. They were happily married. Every week they're solving a mystery, but they also had a lot of elements. There was a lot of fun innuendo. And that was what made the show work. And in fact, the actors who played them said that when writers would come in and say, "Well, let's do something that kind of messes with the marriage," like one of them looks at somebody else or something, and they were
Oh.
like, "Absolutely not."
Mhm.
And thank goodness, because that's what made it work. So that show shows it could work. I don't know why other shows can't do it.
Yeah, I wonder if it's a function of like young writers or there aren't enough like romances out there that are providing a model for what like a romance between a married couple or an established couple can look like. So there's fewer tropes to play with, you know. There seem to be a lot of tropes for how to get people together. You know, your fake engagement, your fault, your proximity, your there's only one bed, your
Right.
enemies to lovers, your friends to lovers, but there are fewer for what to do with a romance in an established relationship. So it's
Yeah,
like there's no
and it's
rails.
almost like once they're in love, they don't get to banter anymore or
Hmm.
whatever. I think of The Thin Man, right?
Hmm.
That came out in the 30s, I guess. And Nick and Nora, they have really good banter. If you don't want to read the book, watch the movies. And of course, Heart to Heart was kind of based on them. So they still had those elements that made them fun. They just weren't coming together anymore. And the conflicts occurred more outside of them than between them.
Hmm.
I mean, sometimes they did. Sometimes they might have a different thought. I know in the Valentine books, when I write them, especially in the early books, they still have some things they need to work through. So there are some conflicts between them, but a lot of times it's them against the world. I describe the Valentines as a couple who stumble over dead bodies by day and tumble into bed at night. And who wouldn't love that?
I think it's
But
fun.
it's in and struggle. I don't like that it's so hard to find.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I really love Grey's Anatomy, which actually does have an established couple in it, but some of the issues between Meredith and Derek are extremely stupid. Like the show
Yeah.
doesn't jump the shark because of them. It jumps the shark because of the plane crash, which I will stand by, but it's still pretty bad, some of the problems that they have in their marriage.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it, like in terms of reading, if you like mysteries and a sleuthing couple, I love a sleuthing couple, those do exist. But the sexy elements, the romantic elements really aren't there because a lot of
Mm,
times they are cozy mysteries and cozy readers don't tend to like those elements. Carolyn Hart has her Death on Demand series, which has a they don't start out married, but they get married in the book, Max and Annie Darling. So there, there are, if you want to see a couple, solving crimes, those do exist, but they don't have the elements I like, which is all the mushy romance or the spicy elements. The exception would be the J.D. Robb books, right? Because even Rourke, they it's mostly Eve solving the crime, but Rourke is there, and there's usually a spicy bit or two
mm,
in there.
perfect.
So, but for a long time, that was it. And so that's sort of why I started writing because I was like, I want more of that. Why can't I have more of that?
Write what you want to see in the world.
That's
Perfect.
right. That's right.
Well, speaking of established couples, you said that Tess and Jack and the Valentine mysteries are inspired by other sleuthing couples you've seen. Can you tell me more about where that came from? Like, I know that like you were watching a lot of Heart to Heart and like you were
Yeah.
trying to create the couple that you wanted to see, but like what was actually the moment where you decided you had to write it?
Yeah. Well, I think what was really strange is I was actually watching Heart to Heart when it went into syndication. I didn't watch it when it came out. And that's what I love. Sexy romantic characters. You eventually go onto the internet and you look around, and I saw people were writing stories about them, and I thought, well, that would be fun because there's things I would like to see them do. Or there were things they did in the show that I was like, I don't like that. I wish they had done that different. you know? So I started writing because there was this place where people were writing it down and posting it. And I thought, well, I'll do that. So that's sort of where it started. But I like a lot of sleuthing couples. I do like Nick and Nora Charles. Agatha Christie has the Beresfords.
Mm-hmm.
And what was interesting about the Beresfords, now they weren't sexy necessarily, but they had some fun banter. And what was fun about them is when she wrote them, we saw them come together and then we saw entire lives up until retirement. So, they had kids and raised kids, but were getting involved in these crimes.
Oh, I love
And in
that.
the 80s, the BBC did a show, which I thought was really fun. It was a little bit campy, but it was really fun.
I
I
love
really
camp.
did enjoy that. And then again, they did it again in the 2010s, I want to say. That one wasn't, I didn't like it as much. It was a little too serious and didn't sort of have that um, fun between Tommy and Tuppence. That was her name. Tommy and Tuppence Beresford.
Puppets?
Tumpets. Yeah.
It's so cute.
Yeah. Tommy and Tuppence.
Hmm.
But when I started writing, it really was around Heart to Heart, and I began reading romance and sort of like, why don't we have this? This did not exist at the time. And of course, we're
Hmm.
talking about the late 90s and early 2000s. We see more of that now. I know, Marie Force has a series with a couple. So I know they exist now, but at the time I couldn't find anything. So I started writing.
Hmm. Well, I sense in there a question which I want to ask you, but of course you don't have to answer this. You have said that you got your start writing fan fiction. I did too. I feel like you can learn so much about an author by asking what fanfic they started with. So, which fandom did you get your start in, and how has
Well,
it influenced your writing? And I think I know the answer.
yeah. Well, what's funny is when I first started writing, it's sort of when you read romance authors and they're say they don't come right out and tell you they write romance or they write under another name because they're hiding it. I
Mm,
felt the same way around fan fiction. I
for
felt like
sure.
I can't tell people that I got my start writing with fan fiction or even what it was. And then of course now in the last decade or so, we've learned so many authors started the same. And in fact, many of them took a story that they wrote as a fan fiction and repurposed it into an original story. And
Yeah,
that's
but
the thing that was published, right?
so many people assume that's what all of our stories are, though. Like, oh, this must be a fan
Yeah.
fiction that you
Yeah.
just filed the
Now
serial numbers off.
I have poached some of my fan fiction for the Valentines. And then I created another couple, the Delacours, who I actually did take some stories and sort of
Well,
that I
you're
had
not
written
poaching it.
and
It's your work. You're allowed to repurpose it and
yeah,
make
and of
some
course,
money off it.
sometimes when you're writing fan fiction, right,
Hmm.
you are taking the world and the characters,
Hmm.
but you're putting them in, and sometimes you're reimagining things, right?
Yeah.
So it's still sort of my ideas. What if they met this way instead? Or,
Yeah.
what if this happened instead? So in that part, there is some originality to it. But anyways, my start was with Heart to Heart.
Nice. I knew
And
it.
I was writing, and I would write sometimes new meeting stories, but sometimes I'd write new stories around some sort of crime that they're solving. I have lots of things that I wrote that I didn't like how they did that scene, so I'm going to rewrite it. Sometimes in the show, they would hint at something. Like I remember one show, they hinted at getting snowed in, and there was a lot of innuendo around being snowed
Hmm.
in. And I thought, well, I'm writing that,
Yeah.
right?
For the fanfic.
And that's what fans loved.
Hmm.
So that's where I got my start. I actually had a story that was stolen twice. Somebody took it and like changed the names
Oh my God.
for a different fandom.
That's insane.
And I got an email saying, "Do you also write for this show?" It was a soap opera. It was like One Life to Live or something. And I was
I
like,
can't believe
"No."
that. I've never had that happen to me. Like, it must have been
Yeah.
really good. People stealing your
Well,
stories.
to look at the writing now would be like, I don't think so. But the
Mhm.
story obviously resonated. So that's when I started thinking, well, maybe I could write.
Hmm.
And I actually sent the story to Rachel because in my mind she was a big reader. And of course she loved it because she's my sister.
Hey, sisters being our biggest fans is a really
But,
good start.
that set me on the path to create something original. Now, the first Valentine mystery is original. I didn't poach anything
Hmm.
except for the concept of having a couple.
Yeah.
I knew I wanted a series where every book they solved a crime and they also did sexy things and they bantered a lot.
Hmm.
So that's what that series came to be. But they're Tess and Jack are not the couple from Heart to Heart.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, they feel very original to me. But I mean, even if
Yeah.
you had like if it was closer to that, like I think that fan fiction is a wonderful, a kind of like a ready-made community of people who are already interested in the IP. So, you get a lot of people reading who wouldn't otherwise read more an original work. And then you get their feedback and you get a sense for how to put a story together and how to write, and you get good feedback and, you can iterate. But people are there because, they're interested in the IP already. So, I mean, I think it's really useful for baby writers.
Yeah. And some of the fans, the Valentine fans did start out as fan fiction readers. I would say, hey, I did this. Come
Brought
look.
them over.
Yeah.
Yeah, you converted them.
Yeah. Yeah. But they like it for the same reason they liked Heart to Heart, right? It's,
Yeah,
a
perfect.
sleuthing couple who,
Hmm.
stumble over dead bodies and tumble into bed.
Just perfect. So, Dead But Not Forgotten has arcs and pre-orders available now. I've been enjoying the series. I'm still working my way through earlier books, as you know. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about this particular book and how Tess and Jack got here to this point?
This was actually a story I didn't poach, but there was an idea of um, amnesia and testing the marriage. And in particular, what if, in this case, it's Jack, his amnesia isn't, begins to question kind of like, I'm hearing all this about me, but I don't, it doesn't resonate with me. And I don't think I can live up to that. I don't want to live up to that person. I don't feel like I could live up to that person, and just how that would challenge the marriage. And of course, at this point in the series, it's a year in from book
Hmm.
one. We're 1 year later. Tess has had the most challenge in terms of learning to trust. So in this story, Jack has amnesia, and he's being accused of murder. And the person he's accused of murdering, he's also accused of having an affair with. So everything that would freak Tess out
Yeah.
is there. But at this point, and one of the things that was important to me at this point, she knows him. And so she's sort of the one like, yeah, you would never do this. And his coming to grips with who is this guy, you know, and who I'm supposed to be. And one of the challenges I feel like was that he's being told about himself, but some of the things he's being told are true, but can be seen in two different ways.
Hmm.
So he can look at it like, well, no, I was a bad person to have done this, right? So in some ways it allows them, you have what I think a lot of people use amnesia for is like, well, let's go back and rebuild this relationship thing. But I didn't want it to be just that. I wanted it to push against, okay, Tess could retreat, but also what would it be like not to have your memory? There's a line in it where Tess is sort of wondering, is it like just black? Like there's just a void? Or is it murky? Like what is there? And what would that be like for somebody to be told this is your life? You are a highly successful entrepreneur and you are this, really great guy and you have this wonderful marriage and da 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 da. And he's sort of looking at it like, what? Like,
Yeah.
like he didn't feel it. And then finally, the question of what if his memory didn't come back? If our love for somebody is tied to our experience with them and he has no experience, where is that love?
Yeah.
And one of the things, because I am a romantic, is that the love is actually there. Like he senses that there's a connection to her, right? But he just
Hmm.
doesn't quite trust it because to me, I wanted that. I love that idea. Like I don't remember you, but in here, in my heart,
Hmm.
in my soul, I know I belong to you, type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. He has like a sense memory of it in a way.
Right.
What
Right.
I like about this idea of doing amnesia is the way that it brings a lot of ideas full circle within your stories, because I'm on the second book right now, and Tess is having to rebuild her life
Yeah.
from basically nothing. I mean, she's really in a terrible position. And this is after having had to rebuild it once already.
What's before,
So she's
right.
been stripped down to the nuts and bolts at this point, and she's got Jack there for her, and he believes in her, but also he's being accused of having an affair in this book, and she is sort of like trying to have faith in him and trying to rebuild her life and all of that. So I like the idea that, you know, by the time we get to Dead But Not Forgotten, she has rebuilt her life and she knows what it's like to have to do that because he's going to have to rebuild. And she has faith in him. And this idea of him having an affair is coming back, but she has that trust in him and doesn't have to question.
Right. And in fact, the incidents that in that second book, that, relationship he had in the second book that's involved in the second book, that is one of the things that comes back
Hmm.
in that book where they're telling him you had this relationship with this woman and he's looking at it like, well, that's not good.
Yeah,
but
I'm just
but Tess
imagining
is
having.
trying to explain to him and of course he doesn't really see it and he's having difficulty.
Hmm.
And one of her challenges is like, why won't he believe me? Like,
Hmm.
why is what everything else is going on, is he not believing her? And but of course this is all around also that this woman has been murdered.
Hmm.
And the murder actually ties in to Jack's history. We learn, as a child, his father had been killed. When Jack was about 12, his father, who was a policeman, who was killed in the line of duty. And he always thought there was something weird about it. Like there was just something odd about it. And so this sort of brings that story also, where we find out what actually happened.
Oh, yeah, because it's
Um,
mentioned in Old Flames Never Die, and I was like, oh, that better come back. Put a pin in
yeah,
that.
it's mentioned several times that his father had been killed, and this is the story that talks about what happened. And of course, in his quest to find out what happened, he meets this woman who now he's accused of having an affair with,
Or
and who ends
Jack.
up dead,
Jack.
and he ends up with amnesia because someone's trying to kill him. That's how
Hmm.
he that's how he got it, right?
Yeah.
He's in a car accident, but it was sort of set up for
Hmm.
him. Yeah,
Yeah. And in all the previous books, he's so sure of himself and his own perspective. Even no
yeah,
matter how much people accuse him, he's very like, nope, I know this to be real. I know this to be
yeah,
true. So it's strange to think of him having to deal with other people's narratives about him and having to
yeah.
believe them and sort through that. Especially you think of like Deputy Dan telling him about his history. I'm sure he loves that.
Well, and of course, Deputy Dan shows up and he and Tess have a familiarity. So again, Jack is wondering, like, wait a minute, maybe she's having an affair too,
Oh
right?
God, no.
Um, yeah, so there's a lot of things he has to work through. But the other challenge of that is how do you get the memory back without it being cliche, without
Hmm.
boinking him on the head again?
with
And
with
being
a
like,
baseball.
oh, it's all back, you know. So having it, how would it come back? That type of amnesia that he has, because the doctor says, look, it's probably going to come back. But when and how, that could take a while. So that's sort of, he would have dreams and not, is this a real dream or, is this a dream or did this really happen? And so it comes back in sort of these fleeting enough for him to sort of recognize what's going on.
Yeah.
But even by the end, it's not all back. So that's sort of moving forward, looking at, okay, what bits is he still forgetting?
Yeah, I mean that amount of amnesia, that's serious brain damage, and I know that
Yeah.
I've read about, non-magical, non-sci-fi amnesia before, traumatic amnesia. And I know it comes back out of order and it comes back kind of traumatically because you're re-remembering things that are just coming upon you suddenly, and that can be really hard
Yeah.
on people. So that in and of itself is kind of traumatic. So, I mean, it's going to be a struggle for him, I would think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Poor
So
Jack.
we'll see. The next book takes place like Dead but Not Forgotten takes place in February, like Deadly
Mhm.
Valentine does. The next book will probably be July. It'll probably be their first anniversary. So he'll have a little more time
Yeah,
to
sometimes you
get
go through some,
himself
some
sorted.
therapy.
But
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Well, so my adopted mom, Karen, who's hopefully listening right now, hi mom, I just loved the teaser line for you from your first Valentine mystery, which goes, "He tastes like chocolate and sin, but is he a murderer?" She
Yeah.
immediately wanted to know if you had an audiobook. I know it'll be a bit before your books are in audio, but what do you think about folks in the bookish world insisting that listening to your books wouldn't be as good as reading them?
Well, I think it's a different experience, right? When I used to run, I used to listen to audiobooks because it was the best way to distract myself from the horror of running.
The horror of running.
And I very specifically chose books. I listen to a lot of Lauren Blakely because
Mhm.
she's got a very light book. They're fun. There's good banter. There's also spicy bits. That's a great
Mhm.
describe. When I'm coming around the corner heading home, but I'm about to hit a spicy bit, I might run an extra quarter mile,
Perfect.
right? Like, and so I enjoyed those. She went to a multicast and I just thought, whoa, this is like a play in my head,
That's
right? Like
awesome.
they're very fun.
Hmm.
With the thing that, so it just sort of depends on how you want to consume them. I feel like I read faster than audiobooks go. And in
Hmm.
fact, I know we talked about Jessica over at Peace Love Books, and one of the things she does at audiobooks is she torques that thing up to like
Oh
two or
God.
three times.
That's
And
a
I'm
millennial thing,
like,
and Gen Z, they all do that. It's so
and
weird to
I'm
me.
like, how do they not sound like chipmunks or something? Like, how are you going to get? I don't know. I haven't. I mean, I have torqued up for like to 1.5 if I'm
Mhm.
listening to a workshop
Mhm.
online or something. But an audiobook, it just feels like it would be weird to me. But I do think I can read faster unless I do that than audiobook. The thing that gets me is when people say that doesn't count for reading.
Mhm.
In one way, I was like, well, why does it matter? Like, if you're saying that to me, well, that doesn't count. Like, okay, boo on you. Like, like if I'm reading for entertainment or I'm listening for like what's the point, right? Like, I
Yeah.
mean, why are you saying that to me? But I also recently was seeing that there was research where they were looking at your brain when you're listening versus reading.
Hmm.
And they're like, there's not a whole lot of difference. That, the parts that are lighting up in terms of taking in information or processing and all that is the same.
Yeah.
And of
Yeah.
course, we know that audio is, if you had a learning disability or a processing disability,
Yeah. Like my mom.
that is one way, you sort of make an accommodation.
Yeah.
Okay, you're gonna listen instead of having to read.
Hmm.
Or, I mean, it's an accommodation in many ways. So,
Really helpful for people with dyslexia,
yeah. Yeah, I
Like,
have another series that went to audiobook and I did enjoy listening to them and I enjoyed
mhm.
the interpretation the narrator had because sometimes the narrator would read it not in the way I wrote it.
Oh, yeah, that's a little weird.
And it wasn't bad.
Hmm.
It wasn't wrong. It was just different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The way I've come to understand this is that it's a virtue argument enrobed in a semantic argument, right? Because I think like the word reading, I guess, means to take a book and look at the words on the page and to interpret those linguistically. Like that's what that word means. Fine. All right. And then we've associated a lot of virtue with the act of doing that.
Right.
Is it good for you as a young person to get good at that and do it quickly? Sure. I think that you should get practice with that skill. It's an important skill. I personally don't process auditory information very well. So I remember in my the year before my reading year, one of the people in the cohort above me was actually listening to a lot of the books on his reading list because he processed in an auditory way. And I thought that was fantastic, and he recommended it to me. But I ended up not being able to process a lot of the information in an auditory manner and had to do all of it with my eyes. And, but when they look at people's brain scans, they're seeing that when you listen to a story or when you read a story, you are processing the story basically the same way. You are processing it linguistically. There isn't a big difference. So, they're basically the same thing. Is it reading? I guess it's not looking at words on a page, but you're still processing the story. Is it easy to tune out while you're listening to an audiobook? Yes, but I also tune out when I'm reading stories on a page. I've done that. I've gone a whole page and then
Yeah.
realized I need to go
Yeah.
back and reread
What's
because I was
going on?
daydreaming.
Exactly.
Yeah, so there's no
Exactly.
difference there either. And one of the nice things is that with AI reading tools, actually, like my friend Ryan has been able to read some of the things that I've written by having an AI voice read it to him because he just doesn't process information by reading it quite as well as hearing it. And I think that's wonderful. I don't know why people argue about this other than having to have a virtue argument of like, well, if you're listening to it, it's not the same as reading, so you're not as virtuous as
Yeah.
me because reading is so virtuous, It's just
And we've
ridiculous.
talked about that whole debate about if you're reading romance, you're, reading slop versus if you're reading classic literature.
Mm.
So I wonder what their thought is like, well, what if I listen to Jane Austen on audio? Is
You
that,
should.
like, is that bad too, or not reading, even though I'm hearing classic literature? And for a lot of people who struggle with literature from the, 18th and 19th century, maybe listening to it will
I
help
help. Yeah.
them understand it,
I
because
had
they,
students ask me that if they could listen to an audiobook of The Hobbit when I taught a high fantasy, and I told them yes. You
yeah,
process that book in whatever way works for your brain. I
yeah,
don't care. I mean, don't watch the movie instead. That's different.
right,
That's not
yeah,
the words from the book, right? But if whatever, however way you want to get that book into your brain, go for it. If
yeah,
whatever works for you. I didn't
yeah,
see a difference between the two things at all. I mean, I had students who were ESL, and it was easier for them to listen and process it that way, or it was harder. It just depended on who they were.
yeah,
I don't know why people are so strange about this. I mean, I'm a
yeah.
teacher of literature here, and I said it was fine. If I say it's fine, it's fine.
It's fine, yeah. But the other side of that is, why are you reading what you're reading? And if the whole point is just to be entertained, it's a fun hobby I have.
Mhm.
Who are you to tell me
Yeah.
that listening to it versus reading it is like, it's more something on them
Hmm.
deciding to judge somebody for having listened to a book versus, and think of all the people, like, are you going to say that to a blind person? Like, well, you're not really reading because you're, because you're
That's horrible.
listening, because
Hmm.
no, they wouldn't do that, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
So
exactly. Like if you wouldn't say this to a blind person, then why are you saying it at all? If you wouldn't say this to a
yeah,
dyslexic person, why are you
right,
saying it? It's
yeah,
it's ridiculous. I just think people want their hobby to feel virtuous. I think that that's part
yeah.
of it. And I'm reading and listening to audiobooks is very virtuous, kids. Keep doing it.
Yeah. And sometimes you do both. I mean, I
Mhm.
know that I was reading a Kennedy Ryan book and I started it, and then we were flying somewhere. And I don't know, for some reason, I didn't want to read on the plane.
Mm-hmm.
So I had Spotify. So when we were in a place I could, access it, I downloaded it on Spotify. And so then on the next leg of the flight, I listened to it.
Hmm.
Right. And then when
Yeah.
I got to where we were going, I figured out where I was and opened the book. Like, I
Yeah.
did both, right?
This is a point that Elizabeth Wheatley made that most of human history has been oral storytelling. Most of human
Right.
history, people have listened to stories or they have listened to people read from a book in a room where you'd only have one copy of the book and it would, you'd have like Pamela serializing in the 18th century and all the servants would gather around in the family upstairs and they would have the new serial of Pamela and they would all listen to it. And it was a community experience. If you listen to a book with other people, you can ooh and awe like you're watching a movie. And it's
Yeah.
really fun and exciting. Like, even though I don't process information as well that way, I still enjoy that experience with a friend. Elaine and I used to, clean up her library. She used to work at a couple of kids' libraries at elementary schools. And during the cleanup at the end of the year, we would put on audiobooks and listen, or we listened to radio plays. And we would be like, I can't believe he said that with each other. It was a fun
Yeah,
experience. And if you
yeah,
haven't done that, you're missing out.
yeah, yeah. And alongside all the other things, you can do it while doing something else, right? My daughter listens to mini audiobooks while she's driving to work,
Hmm.
you know? So I don't know. Boo on the people who diss on audiobooks is not counting as reading.
It is definitely linguistic processing. If that's the word we need, if you won't want to call it reading, you're still
Yeah,
processing story, and that's perfectly fine.
yeah,
All
yeah.
right, the best part of the show, bookish
Ooh,
news. Bridgerton season 4 has rocked everyone's screens lately. As of this recording,
yeah.
only the first half of the episodes have dropped, and I've seen it 3 times by now. Jenna, how did you like it? What did you think?
Uh, what's fun? Well, first of all, I want to share a peeve is that why do they drop this in two different chunks?
Oh, I
I
have an
don't
answer for
understand the
that.
business behind Netflix dropping 4 episodes at the end of January and 4 episodes at the end of February. I mean,
They're
there
trying to
must
have
be,
they're trying to have it both ways. They're trying to have it be bingeable, which is what people like about Netflix, and
yeah,
also be in the zeitgeist for longer than a couple of weeks.
yeah. I don't know. Maybe. Okay. It's irritating to
It
me,
is.
right? Because I watched them all in one day, right?
Yeah.
I got up and watched one. I watched one at lunch. Yeah. I was a little concerned because I did have some disappointment in season 3. I just felt like Colin and Penelope didn't get enough time. They had too many other stories going that just didn't interest me.
Mm.
I didn't care as much. I wanted them. This time around, I feel like they've managed that better so
Mm.
far,
Yeah.
right? That, we have a good amount. And, it is fun to see Violet, all these years after being a widow, finding love again. The romantic in me struggles a little bit because I am that one true love person.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel bad for Edward. Was that her husband's name?
I
I
think
think it
so.
was Edward, something like that. Anyway,
Maybe.
um, but I'll get over that.
She has gone viral this season. That image of her in her like bustier thing and
Yes,
in her
yeah,
chamber, that has gone viral. Like people are into that.
yeah, yeah. And I'm like, how old is she? Like she was probably 18 or something when she had Anthony, and
Hmm.
well, in the books, the ages are kind of different. So I don't know how old he's supposed to be here, actually. Because I know, for example, Benedict is in his 30s
Hmm.
in the books, right? So anyway, I've enjoyed it so far. The changes they've made, I thought were good
Hmm.
in a lot of ways. This goes to another thing we've talked about in writing groups about the prologue. This book has a prologue. Okay. That prologue is not in the story. And the story is still working
Hmm.
because the information we need to know about Sophie is woven in.
Yeah, they
We
woven it in.
saw we see the flashback of her as a child and that she had a father who, was of the aristocracy. Anyway, so in my mind, I'm like, see, you don't need a prologue. But anyways, I have enjoyed it. I do have a question of this that also ties into my questions around Jane Eyre as well. But first, I want to hear your thoughts on it.
Oh my goodness. I'm loving the Cinderella story. I didn't think I would like it, to be honest with you. Benedict has been such a cad. He's been he's been with so many people. I really liked the
Right?
lady he was with, and with the threesome last season, I was like, oh, that could be fun. Like I want to explore that. But
Yeah.
I'm constantly impressed by Bridgerton's ability to bring me around on a couple or on a romance. I'll be like, oh yeah, I'm not really into that. But by the time we get to their season, I'm into it. God damn it. Every single time. I don't
Yeah.
know how they do it, but I really like Sophie. I mean, I can't believe we've got freaking Cho Chang as the evil stepmother. That I wasn't expecting. That
Yeah.
Cho Chang, who is around my age from the Harry Potter series, is the evil stepmother now,
Yep.
makes me feel so old. I don't know what to make of that. I'm loving Posey. I would like to institute the Posey fan club right now with me as the
Yeah.
president. I love her. I want her to
Yeah.
have her own season with her own romance.
Yeah.
She's the
If they
best.
do it right, I think you'll be happy with Posey. And then
Okay.
the epilogue involves Posey in the book,
Hmm.
which is nice. Yeah, I for Bennett, for example, in Anthony's season, or he does have a mistress. And when we first see them, he's sort of like, I'll take care of you.
Hmm.
And then there's the scene where the mom's calling him out
I love that.
and he goes and he leaves the mistress.
Hmm.
That's bad,
Mm,
right? Because we
yeah.
know back then, now she was an actress, so maybe she's, maybe it's not horrible financially for her, but still, he reneged. I see Benedict a little bit different because, particularly in the books, you get a sense of he's always called the second. Like a lot of times, people they know he's a Bridgerton, they don't know which one he is.
Mm.
He's the second one. You're the second one, right? So that goes to his identity. He's the
Yeah.
spare sort of thing. And we see in the show he's searching for a fulfillment. And I think that's why he does all these crazy things, right? Like he does this art to fulfill him. And then when he discovers Anthony paid his way into school, this was in the
Yeah.
show, it broke
Yeah.
him a little bit, right? And he left. So and all these affairs and things he has, it's not like Anthony, in which he's like, I'm going to take care of you.
Hmm.
Like all these women he's been with have been independently successful. So he's
Yeah.
never promised anything, right? So I have less concern about that for him as he moves in to being with Sophie. My
Yeah.
question that always makes me, if I could have dinner with Charlotte Bronte, it's sort of the same thing, is one of the
Hmm.
things that is set up with Sophie is that her father is the aristocracy.
Yeah, he's an earl. Her father was an earl. Yeah.
Yeah. And her mom had been a maid. And that was problematic because, stepmommy makes her a maid and all this kind of stuff. And that's what they
Yeah.
see her as and da 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 da. But even without reading the book, that the fact that her father was an earl is going to help,
Oh, yeah, no, of course. Yeah, and
right?
I'm
In
sitting here being
terms
like, what do
of,
you mean you were her father? This was her father's ward, and the
and
mother isn't going to uphold that? Like, that should destroy her in society. If anyone found out that she
yeah,
took her husband's ward and made her a maid, she would be completely destroyed. Like,
yeah,
that's the
yeah.
history right there. That
Yeah,
actually
now
really
she's
pissed
an
me off.
illegitimate child still, and she has been working in a maid, but
Yeah.
so there's still that factor that would be like, I don't know if Benedict should make, like in those days, I don't think they
Mhm.
could be together, but I think it helps in the end for them to be together.
Oh,
So my
totally. Yeah.
question is sort of like, what if she were just a maid, right? Like, what if she didn't have, this special blood flowing through her? Now, these, of course, were written more recently, so I don't know Julia Quinn's thinking. Maybe she was thinking, I have to do that because otherwise, she has to have that, otherwise it would never work. But it
Hmm.
but it brings me back to Jane Eyre because I've always wondered, what if Jane comes back to Rochester and now she has her own money, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
She has her own money. She's independent. What if Bertha was still up in the attic?
Well, that would be bigamy.
Well, they wouldn't know. They couldn't get married, but would they be together? Like he asked her before
Oh.
she leaves, remember? I
Hmm.
love you. Will you stay with me?
Hmm.
Basically, same thing. Will you be my mistress?
Yeah.
And of course, she couldn't do it the first time around because if that didn't work out, you know, she's gonna be in trouble, right?
Yeah.
But
There
now
was.
she doesn't need anybody to take care of her. So my big question was, what if? And of course,
Mhm.
back then she, probably couldn't do it. But
Well,
I'm like,
have you read Pamela by
no,
Samuel Richardson? It was from
no.
the 1740s, and I would call it the
Okay.
original romance novel, of
Okay.
the form that we recognize today. And it is a
Right.
Cinderella story, and it was incredibly popular. It was a media event before media events were a thing. They had cups and saucers and teapots with
Oh my
Pamela on it.
gosh.
When Pamela got married, people went and rang the church bells. It was an obsession. It was the Bridgerton of its time. And Pamela is a servant, not a daughter of an earl, not a secret
Yeah. Yeah.
aristocrat, not an illegitimate child, an actual servant. She actually speaks like a servant. Her parents are cotters. She is a servant and she marries Mr. B. and people loved it. They ate it
Yeah.
up. It was a wonderful Cinderella story. It's totally possible for an aristocrat to marry whoever the hell they want. There's no law
Yeah.
saying you can't do it. It's
Yeah.
just frowned upon. What I love about Samuel
Right.
Richardson is he wrote a sequel and he wrote a whole portion of Pamela after the marriage, showing the nightmare of this scenario once they're married. Like
Oh,
it's not
geez.
fun. Like her sister-in-law is a nightmare. Everyone in society are jerks. Mr. B is a bit of a rapey jerk just from the get-go. So even though he's a reformed rake, he's still kind of a jerk. But he still is kind of transformed by Pamela's presence in his life. It's completely acceptable for like Benedict to marry Sophie. She is the daughter of an earl, illegitimate, and he recognized her as his ward. Completely fine. Now,
Yeah.
is it a problem in
Yeah.
society? Sure, but he doesn't need money. He doesn't need anything. He's a
Well, that's the
Bridgerton.
thing. Yeah.
He's not
Yeah.
even the first. He can do whatever he wants.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. I thought I was trying to figure out if that was sort of the gimmick to make it easier to work,
I think
right?
so. Yeah.
I don't know because I don't think these were written what in the early 2000s, late 90s. I can't
Yeah.
remember.
I
Um,
think we have stronger ideas of what was acceptable, like legally. Like, I think we have an idea that it was illegal for a servant to marry. But I think that it's good that she's a daughter of an earl because it gives her a sense of agency instead of, I'm always uncomfortable reading Pamela because she's 15 and a servant, and I don't really feel like you could consent in that situation.
yeah.
So it resolves a modern discomfort of on inequality.
Right. Yeah. But think of Pride and Prejudice, right?
Hmm.
When Lady Catherine comes and like, or the halls of Pemberley to be thus polluted or whatever she says,
Hmm.
like if Darcy marries Elizabeth and Elizabeth,
Yeah.
she's not a servant,
her
right?
family
Like,
her family acts in a classless way.
yeah,
Her mother behaves inappropriately, and that's the thing that he points out that like his her mother is embarrassing. Her sisters are embarrassing.
yeah,
All of the sisters
yeah,
are out at the same time. Who does that? You know?
yeah,
Like all of
yeah,
that feels it's like white trash to him.
yeah,
Like that's basically what he's saying. You're white
yeah,
trash. That's
yeah,
our understanding in America. But
yeah,
also this 18th century, have to remember Pride and Prejudice is like 1790s kind of era.
right, right,
18th century is a time of great transformation in British society, and there's just this number of landowners who are making just insane amounts of money. Insane. They've got plantations out in the colonies. They've got investments. They're starting to invest in industry, and they're making a lot of money. So you have people like Darcy whose rents are coming in, and they have these amazing estates that they're all building. The 18th century is a time of these estates getting built. So you are seeing the gentry starting to widen. Like there's this large group of people and people from the merchant class coming into the gentry, new money versus old money, and
right,
that's happening into the
right,
Victorian period as well. And
right,
all these new class distinctions are starting to pop up, and the middle class is becoming a real thing, a
yeah,
professional middle class. And it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's getting hard to figure out who's gentry, who's middle class, who's of the middling sort because of all the money flowing into the society
yeah,
at the time.
yeah,
I just
yeah.
gave a history lecture. I'm so sorry.
Well, you see it in Gilded Age too, right?
Yeah.
The new money versus, and the old money don't want the new money,
Yeah. There's a
hanging
big
around
clash
them.
of American versus old world values are happening there
Yeah,
as well, right?
yeah,
Because
yeah,
American class is in the Gilded Age decided by money.
yeah,
The big change happens when the like the I think that we start getting like the carnies, they become our royalty in the United States because of how much money and power
yeah,
they possess.
yeah.
All right. Sorry. History lecture has happened. All right. Book recommendations. What are you reading right now, Jenna?
Well, I just finished the book. I have to think of the title here. It's The Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon.
Hmm.
I just finished that. And my sister gave me some books the other day. I got so many books on my shelf, but I decided I wanted to read the next J.D. Robb book, which I think is Stolen in Death. I'm
Mm.
like really behind. I must be 5 books behind on the in death books, but this is Stolen in Death. Something is like a jewel is stolen, and Rourke used to be a thief when he was young in his younger days, so he
Mm-hmm.
knows a little something about. So whenever I think Rourke is going to be more involved in the story, I'm very excited about it because again, sleuthing couple.
Awesome. I
So
feel like I keep getting JD Robb recommended to me, and I need to go read some JD Robb. It's like coming up on my feed.
I enjoy it. That first one, Naked in Death, I really, really enjoyed. And that sets up a lot of things that you see through. I mean, there's got to be 60 books now. There's so many. At some point through the middle, you're sort of you're like, okay, I feel like I've read this already.
Hmm.
I have a hard time keeping them all straight, and yet I always go back because I want to see them all. I want to,
You
so
say 60 books?
there must be 60 books.
60?
I know there's over 50. I know there's over 50.
Wait, with the same couple?
Same couple.
Holy crap.
And there's
What?
only, maybe in all this time, maybe only 4 years have passed or something. Like each book is only a couple months after the last book.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
And some
Wow.
get really, I mean, Eve in particular had a terrible traumatic childhood and a horrible incident happened to her. So, like, trigger warning all the way around
Oof.
her history. And even Rourke had a really bad history. But I enjoyed that. What's fun about them is they both had these terrible histories, how they come out of it. She goes into law because she likes those set rules and the black and the white and the, bad people are going to go down. She's kick ass. She doesn't care about social stuff very much. And a lot of time, when they're married, she'll ask people about the marriage rules. What am I supposed to be doing here? So those are kind of new to her. Rourke came out of a terrible childhood and he went into a life of crime for a long time. But by the time we meet him, he's a bazillionaire. He's legit mostly. And, and there's things that aren't legit, he does for fun. But when he meets Eve and discovers how she is, he gets out of it
Hmm.
because he wants to be with her and he knows he can't be with her. She's very black and white. He's happy to live in the gray. So it's funny it's to see how they maneuver through that. He is smitten right away and he's willing to jump in and she's just sort of like, wait. Anyways, I very much enjoy them. And of course, by the third book, they get married. So these other 59, whatever number of books left, a lot of times they're navigating things. She's learning the marriage rules and things like that. Sometimes they travel. They go to Ireland. She meets his family in Ireland. She doesn't like to fly,
Hmm.
and she's afraid of cows. So she doesn't like going to farms or anything.
She's afraid of cows? Like moo
Cows.
cows?
Like if
Why
they
is she
go
afraid of
somewhere and
cows?
there's cows, she doesn't like it. So there's funny elements. Anyways, I just really enjoy it. But whenever I have a sense that he's often they bring him on as like a consultant. So when
Hmm.
I feel like he's going to be more involved, I love it because I just love watching them work together.
That's great.
Yeah.
I can't believe she's afraid of cows. That's amazing.
It's hilarious when they go. Yeah.
Is there like an origin story to why she's afraid of cows?
I don't know. She's just I don't remember an origin story. She's a city girl,
Hmm.
New York. Her partner is a free ager, which basically means she grew up like on a hippie compound. And she's Peabody is a very different person, but they still work together well. Um, but that wouldn't have to do with the cows. But she grew up like in the Midwest somewhere. And so I can't remember where the cow thing came about. But yeah, if they're in the country, she don't like it. She's
I'm
like,
just
give me the city. And it takes place in the future. Well, at the time she was writing in the 1990s, these books start like in 2048 or 2052, something like that,
ooh, near
right?
future. Cool.
Which is not so far in the future now and wasn't
Hmm.
even that far in the future. And so you recognize the world in some ways, but in other ways you don't. Like they
Hmm.
do have off planet type colonies type
Hmm.
things. They have some technology that we don't have. There was a large war that has sort of changed the world in some
Hmm.
ways, before the urban wars.
Yeah.
So anyways, so you do get a little bit of futuristic without it
Mm.
feeling sci-fi, for example. Yeah.
Yeah, I like near future stuff. I mean, sci-fi, Starship Valkyrie is kind of near future. It's 130 years in the future. So, but there's a lot of
Yeah.
space travel and stuff. But I do like seeing and then thinking about like changes on the face of the planet and stuff like that. So it seems like something I might want to read. Does she use it
Yeah.
for interesting murder plots, like strange
Well, in the
technology and
first
stuff?
book, what's interesting is the victim is shot, and they
Hmm.
don't have. There are guns, but only for the collectors. So there aren't
Mm-hmm.
guns on the street. Like people are still killing because
Hmm.
they do. But so she's sort of fascinated by the wound this gun
Hmm.
makes, and she has
Hmm.
a mentor, Feeny, who is old enough to remember the time when and so that's interesting to look
Hmm.
at in
Yeah.
terms of um, so yeah, sometimes, but a lot of times it's, the same. Some of it is like serial killer or demented killer. Some of it's
Hmm.
that. Some of it is just regular old somebody stabbing somebody or poisoning somebody or, I mean, a lot of that's the same. There are things that are different. For example, in terms like prostitution is legal. So they're called legal licensed companions. So they're
Yes.
licensed and all these things they have to do. So
Hmm.
there's some social changes, and yet there's still, you're still going to have, you know, racism and classism and, all those things still exist,
Yep.
even in yeah. So
Yep.
I enjoy him. I
That
enjoy
sounds
him.
great. Yeah, I might have to read that.
Yeah. Her
I can
best
see why
friend
it's
is a
coming up.
grifter that she once arrested,
Hmm.
who's not a grifter anymore. But yeah, her best friend, well, yeah, they're fun. I enjoy them. Yeah.
I think it would be interesting having a murder mystery with a gun with no ballistics experts anymore.
Yeah. And that was so long ago I read that one that I don't know how they do it. But Feeney was like, "Oh yeah, that's what it looked like." And everybody's like, "Look at that."
What is that?
And that one actually had a political bent to it too, because she was like the granddaughter of a senator or something.
Mm,
Yeah.
cool. I love that.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
That's doing everything. All right. Well, I really appreciate you being our highlight this week, Jenna. It was really
Yeah.
fun.
Well, thank you for letting me yammer on about all my stuff.
Yeah. We're gonna have to have a whole Bridgerton episode in the future. People comment if you want a Bridgerton episode, or just the two of us talking about Bridgerton and history for an hour. Let us know. Well, we are Tender and Tempting Tales. This has been Illicit Liaisons, and you can find us on Substack. That's Tender and Tempting Tales on Substack. We've got lots of really great articles, some written here by Jenna about romance, romantic suspense. We also have our anthologies. Those are Tender and Tempting Tales anthologies, Midnight, Mischief, and Mistletoe, which came out in November, and Moonlight and Margaritas, which came out last June. You can find those on Amazon. They are Kindle Unlimited, so you can go read those if you have that. We also have a freebie story that's It's About Damn Time by Jenna Harte. You can join our email list to get that for free. And of course, we'll have all of Jenna's information, her website, and everything in the show notes. Thank you so much. Jenna, do you want to lead us out?
Thank you for listening. Be sure to subscribe or follow or wherever you're watching or listening. And until next time, peace, love, and happily ever after.